Hello and welcome to Goals Driven Life YouTube channel. I am today with my host, my guest, Daven Michaels, and I'm going to give you a brief introduction of him in some time. But I just want to say that I've met many super successful people on my show, in my journey, in my little short life that I have met, and most of these successful people have made a good first impression upon me. But when I spoke to Daven first time, he made a warm first impression. And there's a difference between good and warm. He came across as one of the nicest person I've ever met in my lifetime. And that too, when I've spoken to him only a couple of times. So let me try hard to do justice with an introduction to his phenomenally exceptional career. Daven is the founder of 123 companies. He has been an entrepreneur since the age of 15. That's over 30 years now. And during that time, he stumbled across a business formula that he used to turn multiple diverse business ventures into extremely successful businesses, including a few multiple million-dollar home runs. He was very fortunate to have crossed paths with a very smart individual at a very young age who took him under his wing. He mentored him and guided him, and his life transformed after that. And I'm very curious about this. I'm gonna ask a few questions on that. In 2006, he started 123 Employee, a virtual employee center in Philippines. He started with one employee, and today they have hundreds of employees operating from several managed facilities. In 2011, he used the power of public speaking to cast a wider net and reach even more entrepreneurs all over the world. And in the same year, he started offering higher level marketing, business consulting, and coaching services. This granted desire to help people started in 2009, when a friend of him suggested that he should teach others and achieve success. This ignited a flame that has grown and grown over the years. So let's welcome Daven. Hi, Daven. Welcome to Goals Driven Life YouTube channel. How are you doing today?
Hey, buddy. It's great to be here with you and your audience, and thank you for that. I didn't know that I created that impression for you, and I appreciate that because that's exactly how I want people to perceive me. You know, I love people. Probably my biggest passion is people. I love to hear what they're up to and learn what they're all about, and if I can help them, I love doing it. And so I'm glad that I made you feel good when we first met. So that's really great to hear.
Yeah, in fact, I observed it acutely, this thing, and I could not help myself imagine that, okay, some special people have this quality. No matter where they are in their lives, they are able to retain that sense of sincerity and warmth that they exude, no matter who they are meeting. You are meeting me for the first time, but I could receive that warmth from you. So thank you for projecting that and inspiring.
I appreciate that because, you know, I've felt that from other people. And when I do, I think it's a wonderful thing. And, you know, it's interesting. The one thing that I'll never know, you know, my entire life is spent, you know, seeking knowledge and wisdom and insights. But the one thing I'll never know, I will never know till the day I die, I will never know when I leave the room what's said about me. Right? Do people say, you know, that guy's a real pompous asshole? Or do they say, that guy's a great guy? You'll never know. You'll never know that. And that's the one thing that I always want to know. And I hope that when I walk out of the room, people say, you know, he's a good guy. And so I hope that's the case. And I really appreciate your warm sentiment. Thank you.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So I just
and I feel the same way, by the way. You have that same wonderful spirit. So I appreciate that too.
Thank you. Makes me feel good as well. So I just gave a glimpse about your life story, and it seems like a certain someone played a big role in setting the foundation. I am all ears. I'm very curious to know about him and to learn from that story.
Sure, absolutely. Well, you know, that is one of my mentors. I've been, you know, very thankful that I've had. I've been very lucky that I've had actually several mentors in my life. I think most people that have had success in their life have had some mentors. And by the way, if you're watching this and you haven't had mentors, you know, seek mentors. I mean, mentors are out there, and all the great mentors, they love mentoring, right? It's one of the most empowering, wonderful things there are to do. I know that you just had your first retreat where you just mentored 16 people. They had an incredible weekend with you. And as you know, the great misnomer about mentorship is that when people think about that relationship, they believe that all of the benefits go to the mentees, right? Because they're the ones that are being mentored. But the reality is that the mentor gets just as much, if not more, out of it, because mentoring somebody is the most empowering thing there is, right? I mean, I bet you walked out of that weekend like feeling like so full, right? You felt incredible, right? To have been able to help people. It's so awesome. So if you don't have mentors in your life, definitely seek them. All great mentors will want to help you out for sure. So for me, I've been very fortunate to have some great mentors in my life. But when I think about mentors, there were probably 3 unbelievable mentors in my life that had the greatest impact for me. So the first 2, which I just recently realized were my rich dad and my poor dad, just like Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad and Poor Dad. And I never really had that distinction. And I was actually doing an interview kind of like this. And I was like, wait a minute, one was my rich dad and one was my poor dad. So first of all, my poor dad. So my poor dad was my real dad. My dad never made more than about $30,000 a year US. He was company man, worked for the same company for 40 years, which is what gave me that drive to not be a company man. I started my business at 15 and I never looked back. I wanted the exact opposite of what my dad had. My dad showed me exactly what I didn't want in some ways, but my dad was the most warm, wonderful. I get choked up whenever I talk about my dad because he was the most amazing man. But for all the reasons you wouldn't think, he was not a wealthy man. He was not a scholar. He was not college educated. He was just the most wonderful, warm, friendly, sweet, dear man. He was a master storyteller. He loved people, and people loved him right back. He was the type of guy that got up every morning, planted his feet on the ground, and was just grateful to be alive. He lived in a state of gratitude before it was in vogue, before there was The Secret, before there was any of that stuff. And me, I was much more complicated than that. God forbid I would just plant my feet on the ground and just be grateful to be alive. So, I was way more complicated than that. And the funny thing is, I didn't really realize how much of my dad was in me until he passed away. And then I realized how much of my dad was actually in me. But so that was my poor dad. My poor dad taught me what was really important in life, right? People, and like today I'm the happiest I've ever been, probably for 2 reasons. I probably have more money than I've ever had, which is nice. But more than that, I have more love in my life than I've ever had. I have more friends, more love, more relationships, and that's what fills me up and drives me. And so that's what my dad taught me. Now, I also have my rich dad. My rich dad was my Uncle Mo. And my Uncle Mo was the smartest man I ever knew. My Uncle Mo also, like my dad, grew up poor. He was the son of a junkyard dealer. He was one of 10 kids, but he grew up to become a prolific, famous Beverly Hills doctor. And he was very wealthy. And so on the holidays, we would drive up to Beverly Hills, and he had the big house and the big car and the nice cars and all the accoutrements and the toys. And boy, it was fun at the holidays. And then we go back to my life. And then at the holidays, we go back to Beverly Hills, and it was great and fun. Then we go back to my life. And after a while of doing this, at a very young age, I got hungry and I wanted more. And at like 10 years old, I wanted more, and that got me very hungry. And I started doing everything I could to make money as a kid. I mean, magic shows in my garage. I built an arcade. I mean, anything I could do to make money. And I fell in love with money very early on because I saw that it could buy me the lifestyle that I wanted. And so my Uncle Mo.
Sorry,
yeah.
Did your Uncle Mo actively teach that, or you were imbibing it subconsciously?
Both, because my Uncle Mo was so wise. He was teaching people lessons all the time, and it was a combination. He was always actively trying to teach the family things, but at the same time, we're just learning by osmosis for sure too. So so I got very hungry at an early age. Oh, but yes, absolutely, he was teaching, and I'll give you a perfect example. So because my Uncle Mo was so wise, if he ever gave me an idea or a suggestion, I did it without question. I didn't even question what he said. I did it. So one day, I was 15 years old and I was in retail clothing. I was the youngest assistant manager in the Bullock's Wilshire chain, which later became Macy's. And I took so much pride in it because I took pride in what I did, and I was young, and so I worked in men's clothing in retail, and I got paid like barely a little over minimum wage, but I took so much pride in it. I was so good at it, and I literally, like, everything I could get better at, I would measure and get better at, and so I was great at it, and I thought that was going to be my life. I wanted to move on, become management, and then eventually store manager and divisional or regional divisional, and someday who knows, run the company, whatever. And I thought that was going to be my life at 15. And one day he turned to me and he said, "You need to start your own company." And that had never even occurred to me. And he said, "Listen," he said, "there are rich guys, doctors and lawyers in Beverly Hills. They have a lot of money. They don't know how to dress themselves, and nor do they have the time, but they certainly have the money." He said, "You should become their shopper. You go out, you buy their clothes, you number them so that all they have to do is match the numbers and walk out the door." I said, "Okay, what do I do?" So he said, "Get some business cards printed." And I did, and I started doing that. And then that later progressed and became a clothing company, and then later I was designing clothing for all the biggest bands of the 80s and 90s. So and so that's how I got started on my entrepreneurial journey. So I always say that my Uncle Mo was responsible for pretty much all the biggest decisions that shaped my life, so much so that my Uncle Mo actually brokered my adoption. So the deal was, I was brokered on the dance floor at a party, and the deal was, if I was a girl, I was spoken for, but if I was a boy, my parents got me, and my Uncle Mo made that deal. So, I mean, literally, he was responsible for my parents, responsible for everything in my life. So those were my two biggest mentors. And then I suppose, well, my third biggest mentor was Hal. So when I was 26 years old, I sold my first company. It was my second company, but it was the first company. Well, no, yeah, I guess it was my second company. So I sold my second company, and it was a telecommunications company. And I sold to a public company, but I took back stock in that company. It was a very strategic move, a very risky move too. But I was young and I was willing to take really kind of crazy risks at the time. And I took back stock in the company. That company got purchased. Half the company got purchased. My stock tripled, and in that one moment in time changed my entire life. And so what happened is, the guy who bought my company, his name was Hal. And I was so excited when I sold my company to Hal, because now we were like kind of in business together. We weren't partners, but we were in bed together, if you will. And I was so excited because this guy was a business maverick, and I was like, he's going to be my new best friend. He's going to teach me everything he knows. And that was not to be the case, because he had just gotten married to his new wife, I think his sixth wife or something like that. And so they were driving off into the sunset, and he didn't have time for me. But what happened was, after the company got bought out and my stock tripled and all that stuff happened, his wife had some pain in her stomach, and 3 months later, she was dead from pancreatic cancer. And all of a sudden, these two single guys were together for a summer, and he was kind of grieving over his wife, and I had actually split with my wife, and we ended up just hanging out for summer in Newport Beach. We would he'd call me in the morning. "Hey, you want to hit the gym?" Yeah, we'd go hit the gym. We'd go out for lunch. We'd hang out by the pool. Later that night, we'd have dinner, go smoke cigars. Then we'd go over to the yacht club, and we'd pick up on girls all night. And it was hilarious, because I was like in my mid-20s. He was in his mid-60s. It's like funny couple. But nobody cared, because everybody loved Hal, young and old, because he was this incredibly magnanimous and just incredible personality. And he had so many amazing stories because he had so much life experience. He was this business maverick, and everybody loved him. And anyways, what was incredible is, during that time, Hal shared with me his stories of how he would buy distressed companies, how he would clean them up, and then how he would either take them public or bring in money, break them up, or repackage them, or clean them up and sell them. And he taught me, how to raise capital, how to spin off companies, how to roll up companies. And what he taught me at literally 26 years old changed my life. And that was where I created kind of my recipe, if you will, for business success. And it was very interesting because the way it happened was very organic. So it wasn't like he taught me how to do it. What happened is he would tell me stories. And every night I would go home and I would kind of journal these stories. And after a while, I began to see patterns. So then I began to kind of create my formula. And then I started to reach out to all my friends that were in business, and I would ask them about their formula. And most of my friends were not successful in business back then. I didn't have a good circle. So I would ask them about their formula. They didn't really have much of a formula. But then I did have a few friends that were successful, and they did have a formula. So then, I kind of created a formula, and then I took it out into the world, and it worked. And so then I kind of rinsed and repeated and kind of tweaked, and I use that today, and I've had success after success after success. And of course, it's not always an onward a trajectory. I mean, sometimes you fail, but you get up and you tweak and you pivot and you fix. But hell was like a massive shortcut, and probably the biggest distinction or what I gleaned from that is that no matter where you want to go, no matter what you want to achieve, there's always somebody that has walked that path before you. And if you can identify that person and latch onto them, they will certainly shortcut your path to success, right? And that, again, takes us full circle back to mentorship, right? That's what mentorship is all about. Finding somebody that already knows how to achieve that or has the pathway to achieve that. Why reinvent the wheel? Why sit around and try to figure it out when somebody else can get you there faster, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what people will pay for today, right? They'll pay for speed. They'll pay for like knowledge, speed, execution. And that's what we have to do today, right? I mean, you only have a small amount of time on this planet, right? So unless you can, figure in some great shortcuts, you're not going to get what you need to get done this time around, done. So it's all about, finding those shortcuts and those hacks, if you will.
Right. So those of all the people who have not figured out how to approach a mentor, most of them, usually you want a mentor who is much more successful than you, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes we are overawed because we think, why would a mentor mentor me when he's so successful and far busier than me? How should one approach mentors? Because I think yours was an accidental case where he turned out to be your relative. But how would you just go and randomly approach a mentor to mentor you?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. Okay, so first of all, quite often, well, at least for me, almost all the time, I pay for access. Okay, so I pay for my mentorship. So I know that if whatever I learn from that mentor, or what that mentor shows me, or the connections he makes me, I know the value of that. It could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, or $1 million, or millions of dollars. So am I willing to spend, $20,000 or $30,000 for their mastermind or whatever that may be? Of course I would. It would be a no-brainer. Why wouldn't I do that? So number one, I will always pay for access. In these situations, the idea of being cheap or what have you, it doesn't make sense. You would not want to be cheap. So I'm going to presume, Robbie, that people paid you a decent amount of money for your retreat, and I would hope they did. And here's one thing I know, is that if they didn't, if you allowed them to come for free, the one thing I know for sure is that none of them would execute on what you taught them, because there'd be no value in it, right? They would have no skin in the game, right?
Yeah, paid a price to it. Yes.
Yeah, that's the one thing I know is that they'd all come, they'd all tell you how great it was when they left, and they'd all go home and do nothing. So the fact that they paid you, they'll now go do something. And I know that the more they pay you, the quicker they'll take action, and the more of those people will take action. So that's important. Now, so number one, pay for access. Now, you may be watching this and saying, hey, you know what? I haven't achieved that level yet. Okay, I can't afford to pay 10, 20, 30, 50, 100,000 for access or what have you. And I totally get that. So in that scenario, then you need to figure out what your value proposition is in the deal. I get hit up from time to time, not that often, but from time to time, people will just come up to me and say, hey, Daven, you were amazing on stage. You're incredible. You know what? I just realized you are the perfect person to mentor me. Would you mentor me? And it's like, that's a tough one. I mean, from the bottom of my heart, I want to say yes. But also it's like, I don't mean to say like, what's in it for me? Okay. But also it's like, look, my time is valuable. I'm only on this earth for so long. My family wants me to spend time with them. The world needs me to spend time with them. I have a big mission. My mission is to empower entrepreneurs to their greatness, to show them how to live their true life adventure. And that's not easy. I need a lifetime to do that, So there's got to be something in it for me too. And I know that if I mentor them for free, I know they're going to do nothing. If there's no skin in the game, they're going to do nothing. They're just going to waste my time. Okay, so I know that. So you need to offer up something of value to them. So for example, you made a perfect example with Hal. Okay, so with Hal, I had a huge value proposition. He wanted my company, right? I sold him my company, and in that deal with Hal, I'll tell you how that deal happened. So here's what happened. So a year before I sold the company to Hal, I had an offer from a big multinational company. And it was a cash offer, which was rare, which I thought was very cool, but they lowballed me. So I didn't take the deal. But I also knew that I had a pretty much 2-year window to sell my company because my technology was going to become obsolete. Because that's the problem with technology, is it can become obsolete overnight. So I had about a 24-month window to sell my company, and the clock was ticking. So when I met Hal, well, what happened was I had a business broker that was negotiating with Hal for almost a year. Nothing was happening. And one day, out of the blue, Hal calls me, and he'd never called me directly. And he called me and said, Daven, do you want to do this deal or what? And I said, I do. He said, great. Meet me at the Winchell's Donut Shop around the corner from my office tomorrow at noon. I said, okay, great. He loved donuts. So I met him in a donut shop. And in about 45 minutes, we mapped out the sale of my company that took me 5 years to build on a napkin at Winchell's. Okay. And it went down like this. So basically I told him what I was willing to take. And he said, there's no way I'm going to pay you that. And I said, I think you will. I said, I'll tell you what, you don't have to pay me cash. I said, I'll take this much in cash. I'll take a note for this much. I said, I'll take back stock in your company for this much. And he said, I could do that. I said, yeah, you could do that. And we were short a little bit. And Hal, he owned 42 classic cars. He was a car buff. I said, why don't you give me a couple cars? He said, okay. So he gave me a 1958 pink Cadillac and a 1965 Mustang convertible with pony interior. And the deal was done. So why did I do that deal? Well, I thought that so in my industry, there was a massive amount of consolidation. So all the companies had merged or been bought out. All the public companies had merged, except for 2. There were 2 public companies. They were small for public companies. One was run by a crook, so nobody really wanted to deal with that guy, and the other was Hal. I knew Hal was a takeover target. Somebody was going to buy him. And I thought it was weird that after a year of us chasing Hal, all of a sudden he's calling me. So I took back stock in the company. For him, I knew it was a no-brainer. It was a paper deal for him. He had very little skin. Yeah, I mean, it was like a buy now, pay later type deal for him. It didn't cost him very little cash. And so I did that deal, and then a year later, half of his company got bought out. So when he called me that day, he had a deal on the table. He was selling his company, and a year later, the transaction happened. So that worked out. That whole deal changed my life. But he needed me in that moment, and as a result, I got myself a mentor. So what do you do? So you say, so instead of like coming up to somebody like me and saying, hey, Daven, you were great on stage. I saw that you could be my perfect mentor. Will you mentor me? It's like, you know what? I saw that you could be my perfect mentor. Would you consider, spending an hour with me a month on a Zoom call, mentoring me? And for doing that, I could, my superpower is I'm a social media expert. And I would be willing to do your social media for free if you would mentor me. I'd be like, heck yeah, absolutely, let's do it. Done. So you just you try to figure out how you can be of service, and you can do that in a couple of ways. Maybe you're in a business that you just know that potential mentor would love, or you do a little research and you find out what that mentor is into, or if you don't see an alignment there, you look at what their social impacts of interest are. So maybe like what their charities are, who they work with, where they give, what they do, that kind of a thing. Quite often, like, when I'm meeting with like, billionaires or, deca millionaires or what have you, I look at what their philanthropic pursuits are and try to kind of align with them on that level. That is usually a really good alignment point. So, so just, the key in life is to be of service, right? You are paid directly on your potential or on your level of service, right? Your level of value. And what happens is the higher value that you give to the universe or higher perceived value, the more money you make. And then there's this certain tipping point where it goes from like, when you give okay quality, you get okay pay, you give good pay, you get good pay. You give good service, you get good pay, you give excellent value, you get excellent pay, and then you get to like outstanding value, and then you get ridiculous pay, right? There's like this tipping point where it all kind of changes, which is nice. But that's how the universe works. The more value that you give, the more you receive. So that's what you kind of give out to the world. So the more value that you can give out, the more you'll receive.
So have you had a mentor always in all the phases of your life, even today?
No, I haven't. I've actually just kind of had mentors that have come in and out of my life. Many of my friends have always had like consultants or coaches that they've worked with, and I actually never had that, which looking back, I think is a little weird, right? Maybe that's even ego. Maybe I thought that I was a little too smart for that. I don't know. And then a couple of years ago, I did finally bring on a mentor who I don't know if you've worked with yet, Ofer.
Oh, Ofer, of course, yes.
Have you started working with him yet?
No, I'm meeting him next month.
Yeah, so Ofer Breyer, who is definitely one of the brightest people I've ever met in my life, could conceivably be one of the brightest people on the planet. He became my mentor. And boy, that was a big eye-opener. Just a totally different way of looking at the world. I think having a mentor, like an actual coach or mentor on an ongoing basis, is probably a really great idea because, and they could be smart, they could be off the chart brilliant like Ofer is or not. Because the one advantage that they have that you don't have is they're not in your business. And the problem is that you're in your business day in, day out, and there are blind spots in your business no matter what, because you're in it. And so just having somebody that's not in your business consult for you on your business is huge.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you. So let's shift gears a bit. And I would like to know, of course, you shared some of your secrets, but what has been your consistent superpower that has worked for you all through your career?
Sure.
What would you attribute to those 2-3 things that you think are special for you?
Yeah, so 2 things. So my forte has always been marketing. I never met a business I couldn't figure out how to market better, and usually within minutes. It's interesting. So until a couple of weeks ago, I believe that the lifeblood of all business is marketing. So I believe that if you can dial in the marketing in your business, if you have a ton of leads coming through your door, if your bank accounts are overflowing with money, then you can basically buy yourself out of just about any challenge you face in your business, right? So I mean that is the reality, because cash, if you will, or money is the lifeblood of your business as well, right? So if you have the marketing dialed in your business, you'll have plenty of cash flow and you can figure everything out. And that is, of course, true. And I'm always shocked at how many people start businesses and have no idea how they're going to market that business. I mean, it blows me away how many people do that. I can't believe it. Now, I will tell you, my very first business I opened up and I had no idea how I was going to market it, which is, but that was my first business. I had no clue what I was doing, which is pretty funny. So that's number one. And for the last decade, I've been teaching people how to market their businesses, and I've been telling people that it is the lifeblood of all business. Of course, I've always known that business is about relationships, right? We know that. But I did have a recent experience that kind of really drove that home. So I had done a real estate deal with somebody. And after the deal was done, I had decided that I just wanted to kind of keep the deal confidential. But they had decided that they wanted to market it and they wanted to throw it up all over social media and say, hey, we just did this big real estate deal with Daven Michaels. Hey, because they wanted the marketing that comes from that, right? The accolades. And I had requested to them, please take it down. I don't want it out there. Okay. So in that moment, they had a choice. And there were several hours where they left it up. And I didn't hear from them. And in that moment, they had a choice. And it could have gone one of two ways. They could have left it up. And they would have got plenty of high fives on social media, right? Hey, congrats, mazel tov, right? Probably wouldn't have made them any money, right? Just a lot of social proof. Or they could have taken it down, honored our relationship, of which I send them probably about $100,000 a year in referrals. Okay, maybe 100 to 200,000 a year in referrals. They had that choice, right? In the end, they made the smart decision. They took it down, and we continue to do business. Had they not taken it down, I would have sent that business elsewhere. In that moment, I realized that the lifeblood of all business is actually relationships, right? So, but anyways, so number one, my superpower is marketing. But you know what? In retrospect, maybe my superpower is relationships, because my second superpower is being able to attract really bright, out-of-the-box thinkers and manage them well. My second superpower is really bringing together amazing people and then sort of stepping back and allowing them to achieve their greatness. And that's what I've been able to do with my team for the last 3 decades. And that's how I've been able to build great teams and big businesses. And that's what we've done at 123 Employee. Today, we have over 550 employees on 3 continents. We have an exceptional management team. And although my company really kind of requires me to grow, it doesn't require me to continue on. So like my business doesn't need me on a day-to-day basis. It does need me strategically to continue to expand. But we have like a great management team, just smart people, way smarter than I am, that do incredible stuff. And I just, I'm really in awe of them every day. I just love watching them do their thing. And they love working. I can't even say for me, like with me. It's just we're a great team, and they love it, and I love them, and that's why I have lots of people that have been with me for a decade plus. So
excellent. The thing that I often ask my guests is, because of course, in my retreats, I talk about life planning, future planning, visioning, goal setting, and stuff like that. I would just like to know your process. Like, do you have a 5-year plan laid out in front of you? Do you have an annual plan? Do you set goals? How do you keep yourself motivated to achieve the next level? What are your processes?
Yeah, I'm not as disciplined as I should be. I used to be a lot more. I used to do them annually and quarterly and monthly, and I did quite a bit of that. I've been a lot looser these days, that's for sure. I was gonna semi-retire about a year ago. I told Liz, my girlfriend, that I would do that. I'd slow down. That hasn't happened. So still trying to figure that one out. I'll tell you something that I do. You'll actually find this very interesting. You probably don't know about this, but it's pretty neat. So do you know who John Butcher is?
John who?
John Butcher.
John Butcher, of course. Yes, I have heard of him. Yes.
Okay. So John Butcher owns a company. I think it's called Precious Moments or Precious Memories. I think it's Precious Moments.
He's a public speaker, and he talks about living balanced life with some dimensions of life. Yes, of course.
Correct. Yeah.
In Mind Valley, actually, he's a speaker in Mind Valley as well.
Oh, he is. Okay, cool. So John, his company, I think it's called Precious Moments, which are these little figurines that are sold in gift shops all over the world. I believe it was his dad that started the company, but he inherited the company, but turned it into, I think it's like $1 billion company. He really technologized the company, if you will. And in the sort of second, well, actually, if you ask him, how were you able to achieve, this great success? Well, besides the fact that he inherited it, but he also took it to the next level. And he says it was because, decades ago, he created what he called his life book. And yeah, you've probably heard of this. So he basically sat down and chronicled every aspect of his life, his relationships, his business, the love in his life, his kids, his parenting, everything. And he wrote, what he had today, what he wanted, how he was going to achieve it. He was very specific and detailed. And then every year, and on an ongoing basis, he continued to chronicle in that book, what his goals were, what he wanted to achieve, and so on. So it was very detailed, and he added pictures and so on and so forth. And then later, he came up with a brilliant concept that failed, not 100%, but the business side of it did fail, and that was Lifebook. Okay. And actually, if he's working with Mindvalley, it may have kind of continued in a different iteration. I think maybe it did. But what happened was he had this vision that was absolute genius. And with Lifebook, he created he created Lifebook, and then he created the Lifebook Lounge. And he beta tested, the first lounge was in Chicago. And instead of like a hotel ballroom, it was a lounge. It looked like a nightclub. Okay. And so you would go in these small groups, about 20 people max, and you go to the Lifebook Lounge, and it was a 4-day event, and it looked like a nightclub. And in this lounge, you would walk in with your laptops, and you would have a facilitator. But it was John that would lead the whole thing, but he would lead it from a video screen. Okay. And it was segmented, so there was probably maybe 50 15-minute segments. And so you'd be in the lounge, the administrator would kind of, do a little walkthrough with you, and then John would appear on the screen and he would explain to you what's going to happen, and then he would explain a segment, and he said, now, we're going to talk about parenting and X, Y, Z, and now we're going to take a break, and you'd open up your laptop, and it would ask you questions, and you would, type, the way you want to parent, what you want in your life, and your parenting, and this and that, blah, blah, blah. And you would keep doing these exercises for a few days. And on day 3, you would submit everything on a USB. When you would come back on day 4, you would actually get your physical life book. And it had all these all your pictures you had loaded in and everything you had and what have you. And you actually received this life book, and it was unbelievable. And then what you want to do is every year you want to continue writing and adding to your life book. And I still do that today. And Lifebook failed. At least that iteration did. My guess, I know that they did end up doing an online version, and maybe Mindvalley is publishing it. Do you know if they are? Are they doing Lifebook?
No, but he talks about Lifebook in his sessions. Yeah.
Okay, it was it was ahead of its time. I mean, it was genius on so many levels. First of all, the setting was totally disruptive, total pattern interrupt, right? Not a hotel room, but like the Lifebook Lounge, genius. The fact that John was able to leverage himself, he was on a screen, so he could be, living his life. He didn't have to be in a hotel ballroom, and he could, once it took off, they could have Lifebook Lounges all around the world, and he didn't have to be there. I mean, it was just genius. And then the actual physical book. I mean, on so many levels, it was genius. What they really just couldn't dial in was the marketing. So, marketing is the lifeblood of all business, right? Or one of them. So, but had they just dialed that in, I mean, it was just ahead of its time. I mean, it was pure genius, pure genius. So the long answer to that question is I still chronicle in my life book on a regular basis. And I am goal setting on an ongoing regular basis, but it tends to be more short term. I'm usually setting goals like on a maybe a 30-day rotation, and then kind of achieving those, and then and then circling back around every 30 days or so. So, yeah.
So of course, 30 days planning is more tactical, but you would have a long-term vision on how you want to design the rest of your life, isn't it?
Yeah, that part is more long-term. Yeah, so I do have a long-term vision for where my life is going. What I want it to be like. That's usually kind of like a 5-year type zenith, if you will. Then for the business, we usually have kind of like a 1-year time horizon, and then I'm kind of working in 30-day chunks.
Nice. Yeah. I also know that you are a globetrotter. You speak and different countries every week, every month. You are in a different country.
Yeah.
So What, according to you, are what does it take to be a global public speaker, a successful one at that?
Sure. So when I was in my early 20s, Robbie, I hadn't been anywhere in the world. I grew up in Southern California, and I don't know even know if I really thought that much about travel. But then, well, no, I did want to get out there actually, and then I did start to, I took a trip to Europe, and I was like, my eyes opened up, and I was like, okay, I want to get out there. And today, I get paid to travel and see the world, and I can't believe it. I pinch myself every day. I can't believe I get paid to travel and see the world. It's the coolest thing ever, and I would do it for free. But the fact that I get paid is like unbelievable. And the coolest thing is paid speaking is the highest paid profession on the planet. So, I've been paid, well over six figures for 90 minutes, which is, it's the highest paid profession there is on an hourly basis. So it's incredible. I mean, I recommend it to anybody. Like if you have a superpower, trust me, people will pay a lot of money to hear you talk about it. And there's two types of speaking. There's keynoting, and then there's sales speaking. Keynoting is a nice profession. You can make a living, but selling from stage is where the big money is. I just happen to love doing that. So it's great. And so, yeah, if you have something, like a superpower, you can, there's plenty of room. There's plenty of stages that want you. And the key is to have a platform. So, you need something that people will pay for, something of, high value. And then you need to get really good at being able to convey that value. And then promoters, once you get good at it, promoters will call you all the time. People always ask me, like, who does your bookings? Who's your agent? And for the last decade, I've been speaking. I've been a public speaker for the last decade. I haven't had an agent. I attempted it a few times. They were all terrible. But primarily, people always ask me, like, how are you on so many stages all over the world? I've been in 50 countries so far. And the way I've done it is my phone rings. People call me. And the reason why is because the event producers know that they're going to make a lot of money by having me on their stage. So the phone rings because I'm really good at it. And so you just get good at it and the phone will ring. Having said that, last year I finally got myself a manager. And she's great. She's great. So it's fun to have one, finally. But yeah, it's so cool to get paid to travel. And I just happen to love like empowering people and helping them in their business. And so it's just, it's the funnest part of my business. And I'm an entertainer in ways. I love doing it. So it's super cool.
You have to love it. Otherwise you cannot fake it, isn't it?
It's interesting. I met a few people, I think, well, maybe they do love it. They don't love people. It's totally a people business. So I think 99% of the people that do it, you gotta love people. Like, I love people, so I do it. But I have met a few people that don't love people. They just do it, which I was pretty surprised that you can do that. I guess there's always an exception to the rule. But yeah, for the most part, it's a blast, and you get out there, you interact with people. It's super fun. Yeah, I think, let's see, today I'm in Puerto Rico, but tomorrow, tomorrow I'm heading to San Diego, so I'll be speaking in San Diego for the weekend, and then I'll be in Vegas. So I was supposed to be speaking in Thailand next week, but I canceled because of the coronavirus. I feel bad about it. I know they're not happy with me. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. Excellent. This was great catching up with you, Daven, and you shared lots of nuggets of wisdom on a lot of topics, especially on the mentorship, where people do not yet have not known the power of mentorship. And thank you for shedding some light there. And on all the topics that you shared. Appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Robbie. It's always a pleasure speaking with you. I appreciate you. And thanks to all of your audience for listening in.
Thank you, Daven. All right. This was good.
Cool. Yeah, I thought it was great.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, brother. I got to bounce to my next call, but we'll be in.
And let me know whenever you're ready with your offer, and we can start talking about that.
Yeah, we'll get that together soon.